Hello there, dear gender non-specific viewer. JP here. Thanks for joining me today for our look at Avalon Hill's Sports Illustrated's Pro Golf card, dice, and booklet game from 1984. There were actually a few additions from what I've read, but the rules remain the same even through apparently recent additions. I'm not sure if those are legit or not, but I'm dealing with this one right now. I bought this off the shelf at a game store in the late 80s, if I remember correctly, so even then it was at least a few years old. But that was a nice quirk of game stores, especially the ones with the Simpsons comic book store guy type running them. You could go to the store for a decade and see the same old and obscure game sitting on the top shelf. Not stock of the same game, the same identical box you've looked at for 10 years. I made a few purchases of those veteran shelf sitters. Anyway, it was a nice, crisp, green, dense cover. The cover art is a painting of not Jack Nicklaus, most likely, but it could really have been any 80s golfer. And the hair on most of them looked about the same. There's even a black guy in the scene. He's a caddy, but still, progress. The side blurb reads, "The battle of nerves that is professional golf." Is that a question? A statement? An answer to someone's inquiry? I guess it's the game's motto, but it's pretty, well, cliché, and shamefully so, because you have to be pretty willing and pretty good at really wielding your imagination creatively, like a chainsaw artist's two-cycle brush, against the log that is the rather pedestrian rules for pro golf. Battle of nerves? Yeah, no. Flopping the box over, a nice illustration of a sample overhead of one of the 18 holes from a golf course, complete with fairway, trees, rough, water, and bunker hazards guarding the green. The side of the box's strange wording returns as the alien impersonating a human fills us in on what's going on. Professional golf's top money winners, here to recreate the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. Maybe full sentences cost too much or something. I don't really know how the economy was at the time. Have you ever wondered how the game of professional golf is really played? How the best golfers in the world plan and execute their play on each hole? Who are the best players on the tour? It asks. Okay, well, an awful lot of ellipses, and a bit confused, but the jumble of words makes a good point, and I'm pleased to verify that the game answers those questions, and is not just overblown hyperbole, as players really do get to choose strategies during play. Sometimes. The box goes on to indicate up to 36 players could play the game. Sure. And tells you that the course book contains each hole for Pebble Beach, circa 1984, very famous golf course, and then essentially summarizes all of the rules in one long paragraph on the back of the box. Although it's neat to read and helped me decide to buy the game, it does seem like it probably should have been a little briefer on the box. It's a bit too talky. At any rate, opening the box reveals the instructions, the course booklet, an excerpt from Golf Digest, the Avalon Hill Sports Illustrated Sports Game Catalog, Pebble Beach Scorecard, and one mini die. 2 mini dice. Well, I only have one for some reason. I don't know how I lost one die, but it came with 2 small white dice. It might have even come with a golf pencil for recording your score. Seems appropriate, but I don't remember if it did or not. Oh, and golfer cards, of course. Lots of golfer cards. Almost 40, 36. With alternating white and blue bands and all kinds of columns and rows and arcane and ineffable abbreviations and numbers. And no names. Just numbers. You can't look through the stack of golfer cards and grab Arnold Palmer or Gary Player. You can, however, grab number 15. Exciting, right? The photocopied Golf Digest sheet isn't just for show. It's actually vitally integral to playing the game properly, which always struck me as an odd design choice. Those numbered cards I mentioned, They're the ranked golfers printed on the Golf Digest sheet, with number 1 being Greg Norman, ranked number 1 in the PGA Tour leader list for 1986. 86. Okay, this is apparently an updated edition because the original list was a copy of a USA Today article, and this sheet instructs you to replace this section in the rules that refer to USA Today with this sheet's information. This single sheet increases the total pages of rules by 50%, since the rules themselves are only one folded sheet divided into 4 pages, 2 front and 2 back. Is it just me, or does this all seem unnecessarily complicated? And I would say lazy, but this is more work than if you just made your own list and compiled it all into 1 or 2 pages of rules and everything combined, instead of using one photocopy and then updating it and replacing it with another photocopy with instructions to substitute. I don't know, but what an absolute mess. And it still doesn't explain why they couldn't print the golfers' names on each card following their numbers. Number 1, Greg Norman, boom, done. It is a mystery. So here we are, a stack of lifeless blue and white cards with numbers and abbreviations all over them, and a second putt card, which you use occasionally when your golfer lands a shot on the green and some other conditions are existing. It's a little nebulous. So I guess players can pick their golfer from the list and find that numbered card in the stack. I think images, either photographs or even just black and white line art of the golfers, would have been a nice, flavorful addition. But then again, I'm asking that from a game that wouldn't even put the names of the golfers on the golfer cards. I think I may be working outside Avalon Hill's comfort zone on this one. So you and the other players, up to 36 remember, or just you by yourself, you can play the game solo, which is a nice feature, if a little sad. Pick a golfer, get his card, and the second putt card, dice, and the course booklet, and open it up to hole 1. You're ready to go. Very little setup. I do like that. I was disappointed because I was used to role-playing games and stuff when I got this, and I realized the holes were static. It was like the hole wasn't going to change. It was one course and it had 18 holes. You didn't roll to move things around or figure out where the pin was or how many bunkers there were or how long the hole was. I was really into random charts and stuff. I still kind of am, but I understand now it's a lot easier to actually have a static course. So one page has the color illustration of the hole in overhead bird's eye view perspective, as well as a brief description of the hole, including yardage and par, and the other page has all the text and options and abbreviation results corresponding to your roll. For example, shot 1 on hole 6 is T drive. That means you roll your dice and consult your golfer card, cross-referencing your roll and the result it has with the column matching your shot type, which is, in this case, drive. So say I rolled and got SC on my card, which is a short center shot, SC. I find SC in the shot 2 section, and it will tell me what happened. It indicates it landed in the fairway, and then that my next shot will be a fairway wood, usually a 3-wood layup, FW layup. You don't choose clubs, so that's just for flavor, but it's, it works. Though a few shot results do give you the option as to how you want to proceed, such as FW to green, that's fairway wood, remember, or MI layup, that's middle iron. Then you make your choice and roll and find either the shot 3, FW to green, or shot 3 MI layup section. So there is some actual player choice and strategy. Not a lot, but some, enough to at least let the players feel like they're involved in the decision making, but just barely. Other results can have you wind up hitting into the water and taking penalty strokes, finding the bunker or rough, and getting penalties to your rolls, to find your way back to the fairway or green, and even putting you on the fringe and allowing you to putt or choose to use a chip shot. For a few special results, you refer to the included second putt card that I mentioned before, but I still feel like that could have been left out with a bit more conscientious game design. But it's not a big hassle. Being on the green is its own situation and involves rolling distance in feet. It's possible to get a hole-in-one on par 3 holes. There are also rules for superlative drives, which, while I understand they're being included for rare extra oomph, their way they're implemented and ignored if you don't land on the green on your drive makes them pretty questionable for their inclusion. That all could have been left out, and I don't really think it would have detracted from the game. Because it's really, if you don't land on the green on your shot, then you ignore the superlative drive thing. But if you do, you roll a dice and subtract the distance that it gives you whenever you do land on the green. That seems unnecessary. But regarding the actual terminology used, all kinds of real golf decisions and terms and situations, any golf fan that would buy this, obviously, that would be familiar with, and so they can grasp onto what's going on. The terminology isn't something they really have to come to, like some board and role-playing games where it's all very much in context of the game itself. You won't have any pre-existing ideas of some things, some statistics and traits and attributes, but this is all, LIs, long iron, and things like that. A golf fan will understand all of the references. It's a wonderful touch that really brings a sense of depth. It really helps provide an illusion of depth, at least, to what's very close to being a dice fest otherwise. It can be tense, and it is exciting to want to get the right rolls and beat your opponent or whatever, and make par, get birdies or bogey or eagles or whatever like that. So it's hard to fault it in that way, because it does give you choices. But what about those dice that we mentioned earlier, that you roll for all these results? Well, it's 2 dice, but do you roll them and add them like most games? No, of course not. You read them sequentially, similar to percentile or D100 rolls for anyone familiar with that notation from tabletop role-playing games. Although you don't have a particular leading die that you designate. Whichever die face is the lower of the 2 in the roll is read first as the tens digit. So if you roll a 5 and 3, your roll is actually 35. It's impossible to roll 53, because the 3 and the 5 automatically place 3 as the first digit. This allows 2 normal 6-sided dice, to produce 21 different results instead of 11. Though the probability distribution is wildly hinky, and I presume this was taken into account in the math for each golfer, although it's pretty hard to be certain of that. At the end of the game, though, which could take around an hour or longer, and depending on how many people are playing, the fact is numerous players can use their favorite golfer of the 80s, unless you do get new golfers, which there are some available, on sites like tabletop-sports.com, as officially ranked and rated in 10 categories by Sports Illustrated, roll the dice a few times per hole, make a few choices here and there, and compete against friends or play by yourself, set up tournaments. There's even rules in the instructions for gambling. I'm not sure why they put those in there, but they're there. It's an official rule set. It's not the most amazing golf game, but it's hard to really criticize it very harshly. It's supremely functional and solid, just not outstanding.